The Olympic symbols are icons, flags and symbols used by the International Olympic Committee to promote the Olympic Games. Some, such as the flame, fanfare, and theme, are more common during Olympic competition, but others, such as the flag, can be seen throughout the year. Motto. The Olympic motto is the Hendi Autris Citius, Altius, Fortius, which is Latin for faster, higher, stronger. The motto was proposed by Pierre de Coubertin on the creation of the International Olympic Committee in 1894. Coubertin borrowed it from his friend Henri Didon, a Dominican priest who was an athletics enthusiast. Coubertin said these three words represent a program of moral beauty. The aesthetics of sport are intangible. The motto was introduced in 1924 at the Olympic Games in Paris. A more informal but well-known motto, also introduced by Coubertin, is "The most important thing is not to win but to take part." Coubertin got this motto from a sermon by the Bishop of Pennsylvania during the 1908 London Games. The rings. The primary symbol of the Olympic Games is composed of 5 interlocking rings, colored blue, yellow, black, green, and red on a white field, known as the Olympic rings. The symbol was originally designed in 1912 by Baron Pierre de Coubertin, co-founder of the modern Olympic Games. According to Coubertin, the ring colors with the white background stand for those colors that appeared on all the national flags that competed in the Olympic Games at that time. Upon its initial introduction, Coubertin stated the following in the August, 1912 edition of Olympique. The 5 colors, including the flag unregistered trademark S white background thus combined reproduce the colors of all the nations, with no exception. The blue and yellow of Sweden, the blue and white of Greece, the tricolors of France, England and America, Germany, Belgium, Italy, Hungary, the yellow and red of Spain next to the novelties of Brazil or Australia, with Old Japan and New China. Here is truly an international symbol. In his article published in the Olympic Review, the official magazine of the International Olympic Committee in November 1992, the American historian Robert Barney explains that the idea of the interlaced rings came to Pierre de Coubertin when he was in charge of the USFSA, an association founded by a union of 2 French sports associations and until 1925, responsible for representing the International Olympic Committee in France. The emblem of the union was 2 interlaced rings and originally the idea of Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. For him, the ring symbolized continuity in the human being. The 1914 Congress had to be suspended because of the outbreak of World War I, but the symbol and flag were later adopted. They would first officially debut at the Games of the 7 Olympiad in Antwerp, Belgium in 1920. The symbol's popularity and widespread use began during the lead-up to the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin. Carl Diem, president of the organizing committee of the 1936 Summer Olympics, wanted to hold a torchbearer ceremony in the stadium at Delphi, site of the famous Oracle, where the Pythian Games were also held. For this reason he ordered construction of a milestone with the Olympic rings carved in the sides, and that a torchbearer should carry the flame along with an escort of 3 others from there to Berlin. The ceremony was celebrated but the stone was never removed. Later, 2 British authors Lynn and Graypool, when visiting Delphi in the late 1950s, saw the stone and reported in their History of the Ancient Games that the Olympic rings design came from ancient Greece. This has become known as Carl Diem stone. This created a myth that the symbol had an ancient Greek origin. The rings would subsequently be featured prominently in Nazi images in 1936 as part of an effort to glorify the Third Reich. The current view of the International Olympic Committee is that the symbol reinforces the idea that the Olympic movement is international and welcomes all countries of the world to join. As can be read in the Olympic Charter, the Olympic symbol represents the union of the 5 regions of the world and the meeting of athletes from throughout the world at the Olympic Games. However, no continent is represented by any specific ring. Prior to 1951, the official handbook stated that each color corresponded to a particular continent: blue for Europe, yellow for Asia, black for Africa, green for Australia and Oceania, and red for the Americas. This was removed because there was no evidence that Coubertin had intended it. Flag. The Olympic flag was created by Pierre de Coubertin in 1914. The Olympic flag has a white background, with 5 interlaced rings in the center: blue, yellow, black, green and red. This design is symbolic. It represents the 5 inhabited continents of the world, united by Olympism, while the 6 colors are those that appear on all the national flags of the world at the present time. Pierre de Coubertin. Specific flags. There are specific Olympic flags that are displayed by cities that will be hosting the next Olympic Games. During each Olympic closing ceremony in what is traditionally known as the Antwerp ceremony, the flag is passed from the mayor of one host city to the next host, where it will then be taken to the new host and displayed at City Hall. These flags should not be confused with the larger Olympic flags designed and created specifically for each Games, which are flown over the host stadium and then retired. Because there is no specific flag for this purpose, the flags flown over the stadiums generally have subtle differences, including minor color variations, and, more noticeably, the presence of white outlines around each ring. Antwerp Flag. The first Olympic flag was presented to the IOC at the 1920 Summer Olympics by the city of Antwerp, Belgium. At the end of the Games, the flag could not be found and a new Olympic flag had to be made for the 1924 Summer Olympics in Paris. Despite it being a replacement, the IOC officially still calls this the Antwerp flag instead of the Paris flag. It was passed on to the next organizing city of the Summer Olympics or Winter Olympics until the 1952 Winter Olympics in Oslo, Norway, when a separate Olympic flag was created to be used only at the Winter Olympics. The 1924 flag then continued to be used at the Summer Olympics until the Games of Seoul 1988, when it was retired. In 1997, at a banquet hosted by the U.S. Olympic Committee, a reporter was interviewing Hal Haig-Priest, who had won a bronze medal in platform diving as a member of the 1920 U.S. Olympic team. The reporter mentioned that the IOC had not been able to find out what had happened to the original Olympic flag. "I can help you with that," Priest said, "it's in my suitcase." At the end of the Antwerp Olympics, spurred on by teammate Duke Kahnemoku, he climbed a flagpole and stole the Olympic flag. For 77 years the flag was stored away in the bottom of his suitcase. The flag was returned to the IOC by Priest, by then 103 years old, in a special ceremony held at the 2000 Games in Sydney. The original Antwerp flag is now on display at the Olympic Museum in Lausanne, Switzerland, with a plaque thanking him for donating it. Oslo Flag. The Oslo flag was presented to the IOC by the mayor of Oslo, Norway during the 1952 Winter Olympics. Since then, it has been passed to the next organizing city for the Winter Olympics. Currently, the actual Oslo flag is kept preserved in a special box, and a replica has been used during recent closing ceremonies instead. Seoul Flag. As a successor to the Antwerp flag, the Seoul Flag was presented to the IOC at the 1988 Summer Olympics by the city of Seoul, South Korea, and has since then been passed on to the next organizing city of the Summer Olympics. Singapore Flag. For the inaugural Youth Olympic Games, an Olympic flag was created for the junior version of the Games. The flag is similar in most ways to the Olympic flag, but has the host city and year on it, and was first presented to Singapore by IOC President Jacques Rogge. It was handed over to the next organizing committee, NORG, in 2014, during the closing ceremony on August 26, 2010. Flame and Torch Relay. The modern tradition of moving the Olympic flame via a relay system from Greece to the Olympic venue began with the Berlin Games in 1936. Months before the Games are held, the Olympic flame is lit on a torch, with the rays of the sun concentrated by a parabolic reflector, at the site of the ancient Olympics in Olympia, Greece. The torch is then taken out of Greece, most often to be taken around the country or continent where the Games are held. The Olympic torch is carried by athletes, leaders, celebrities, and ordinary people alike, and at times in unusual conditions, such as being electronically transmitted via satellite for Montreal 1976, submerged underwater without being extinguished for Sydney 2000, or in space and at the North Pole for Sochi 2014. On the final day of the torch relay, the day of the opening ceremony, the flame reaches the main stadium and is used to light a cauldron situated in a prominent part of the venue to signify the beginning of the Games. Medals. The Olympic medals awarded to winners are another symbol associated with the Olympic Games. The medals are made of gold-plated silver, or bronze, and awarded to the top 3 finishers in a particular event. Each medal for an Olympiad has a common design, decided upon by the organizers for the particular Games. From 1928 until 2000, the obverse side of the medals contained an image of Nike, the traditional goddess of victory, holding a palm in her left hand and a winner's crown in her right. This design was created by Giuseppe Cascioli. For each Olympic Games, the reverse side as well as the labels for each Olympiad changed, reflecting the host of the Games. In 2004, the obverse side of the medals changed to make more explicit reference to the Greek character of the Games. In this design, the goddess Nike flies into the Panathenaic Stadium, reflecting the renewal of the Games. The design was by Greek jewelry designer Elena Votsi. Anthems. The Olympic hymn, officially known as the Olympic Anthem, is played when the Olympic flag is raised. It is a musical piece composed by Spiridon Samaras with words written from a poem of the Greek poet and writer Kostas Palamas. Both the poet and the composer were the choice of Demetrios Viklas, a Greek pro-European and the first president of the IOC. The anthem was performed for the first time for the ceremony of opening of the 1896 Athens Olympic Games but wasn't declared the official hymn by the IOC until 1957. In the following years, every hosting nation commissioned the composition of a specific Olympic hymn for their own edition of the Games until the 1960 Summer Olympics in Rome. Other notable Olympic anthems and fanfares include Olympisch Hymn, a composition for orchestra and mixed chorus composed by Richard Strauss for the 1936 Berlin Summer Olympics. The Olympic fanfare for the 1952 Helsinki Summer Olympics was originally composed by Americanto for the 1940 Summer Olympics, which were cancelled. Americanto's fanfare won the fanfare contest organized in Finland in 1939, but the score was lost over a decade. When rediscovered in 1951, it was decided to use this fanfare in 1952. The popular fanfare was recorded in 1953. Bugler's Dream, written in 1958 by Leo Arnaud as part of his Charge Suite, the theme is often thought of by Americans as the Olympic theme due to its usage in television coverage by ABC and NBC, starting with the 1964 Olympics. Olympic Fanfare 1972, the winning submission for the Munich 1972 Summer Olympics theme song, used as the TV signature tune of the German Olympic Center and the prelude to the medal ceremonies, composed by Herbert Rebein. It was performed by the orchestra of the Bavarian Broadcasting Company and members of the Air Force Band Neubeiberg, conducted by Willie Matz. Olympic Fanfare and Theme, composed by John Williams for the Los Angeles 1984 Summer Olympics, the theme was performed in the opening ceremonies by the United States Army Herald Trumpets conducted by then-Captain David Dietrich. The first recording, performed by an orchestra composed of Los Angeles area musicians, was released in its entirety on the LP and cassette album The Official Music of the Kshksiaid Olympiad Los Angeles 1984, with a concurrent Japan-only CD release. A slightly different arrangement of the piece was released on the Phillips album by request, The Best of John Williams and the Boston Pops Orchestra. In 1996, an alternate version of Olympic Fanfare and Theme was released on the album Summon the Heroes for the Atlanta Olympic Games, replacing the first part of the piece with Arnaud's Bugler's Dream. The theme was also used in closing ceremony of the 2010 Olympic Games, as the nation's flag bearers enter BC Place Stadium surrounding the Olympic flame and when the Olympic flag was brought into the stadium by Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson. The Olympic Spirit, the theme written by John Williams for the 1988 Olympics in Seoul and used in the corresponding NBC broadcasts. Summon the Heroes, the theme written by John Williams for the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta. The Adventures of Briscoe County, Jr. The theme song to this television show, written by Randy Edelman, is currently used in the NBC broadcasts starting with 1996 Summer Olympics. Call of the Champions, the theme written by John Williams for the 2002 Salt Lake Winter Olympics. Several other composers have contributed Olympic music during the years, including Henry Mancini, Francis Lee, Marvin Hamlisch, Philip Glass, David Foster, Mikis Theodorakis, Ryuichi Sakamoto, Vangelis, Basil Polidorus, Michael Kamen, and Mark Waters. Cody Nose. The Cody Nose is an olive branch, originally of wild olive tree, intertwined to form a circle or a horseshoe, introduced by Heracles. In the ancient Olympic Games there were no gold, silver, or bronze medals. There was only one winner per event, crowned with an olive wreath made of wild olive leaves from a sacred tree near the Temple of Zeus at Olympia. Aristophanes in Plutus makes a sensible remark why victorious athletes are crowned with wreath made of wild olive instead of gold. The victorious athletes were honored, feted, and praised. Their deeds were heralded and chronicled so that future generations could appreciate their accomplishments. Herodotus describes the following story which is relevant to the olive wreath. Xerxes was interrogating some Arcadians after the Battle of Thermopylae. He inquired why there were so few Greek men defending the Thermopylae. The answer was all other men are participating in the Olympic Games. And when asked, what is the prize for the winner? An olive wreath came the answer. Then Tigranes, one of his generals, uttered a most noble saying, "Good heavens! Mardonius, what kind of men are these against whom you have brought us to fight? Men who do not compete for possessions, but for honor." However, in later times, this was not their only reward. The athlete was rewarded with a generous sum of money by his hometown. The Cody Nose tradition was renewed specifically for the Athens 2004 Games, although in this case it was bestowed together with the gold medal. Apart from its use in the awards ceremonies, the Cody Nose was chosen as the 2004 Summer Olympics emblem. Olympic Salute. The Olympic salute is a variant of the Roman salute, with the right arm and hand are stretched and pointing upward, the palm is outward and downward, with the fingers touching. However, the arm is raised higher and at an angle to the right from the shoulder. The greeting is visible on the official posters of the Games at Paris 1924 and Berlin 1936. Also famous is the French and Canadian teams entering the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, 1936 with their arms raised. In the Leni Riefenstahl film Olympia this scene was captured, and afterwards led to repeated misinterpretations suggesting that the French and Canadian delegations were saluting Hitler. Mascots. Since the 1968 Winter Olympics in Grenoble, France, the Olympic Games have had a mascot, usually an animal native to the area or occasionally human figures representing the cultural heritage. The first major mascot in the Olympic Games was Misha in the 1980 Summer Olympics in Moscow. Misha was used extensively during the opening and closing ceremonies, had a TV animated cartoon and appeared on several merchandise products. Nowadays, most of the merchandise aimed at young people focuses on the mascots, rather than the Olympic flag or organization logos. Intellectual property. The Olympic movement is very protective of its symbols. As many jurisdictions have given the movement exclusive rights to any interlocking arrangement of 5 rings, and usage of the word Olympic. They have taken action against numerous groups seen to have violated this trademark, including the Gay Games, the Minneapolis, Minnesota-based band The Hopefuls, Redneck Olympics or Redneck Games, Awana Clubs International, a Christian youth ministry who used the term for its competitive games, and Wizards of the Coast, publisher at the time of the IOC's complaint of the card game Legend of the Five Rings and others. But a few companies have been successful in using the Olympic name, such as Olympic Paint, which even has a paintbrush in the form of a torch as its logo, and the former Greek airline Olympic Airlines. Certain other sporting organizations and events have been granted permission by the IOC to use the word Olympics in their name, such as Special Olympics, an international sporting event held every 4 years for people with intellectual disabilities. In recent years, organizing committees have also demanded the passing of laws to combat ambush marketing by non-official sponsors during the Games, putting heavy restrictions on using any term or imagery that could constitute an unauthorized association with the Games, including mere mentioning of the host city, the year, and others. See also, Modern Olympics movement, the Olympic mascot, an animal native to the area or occasionally human figures representing the cultural heritage of the place where the Olympic Games are held. The Olympic oath, an oath to commit to competition in sport within the rules without doping. First taken at the 1920 Summer Olympics by the athletes, this was expanded to the judges at the 1972 Winter Olympics, and at the 2010 Summer Youth Olympics, to the coaches. The Olympic Order, an award conferred by the International Olympic Committee, the Olympic Emblem, the emblem of every edition of the Olympic Games, usually combining the Olympic rings with some elements representing the host city or country and its culture. The Olympic Poster, the poster of every edition of the Olympic Games, usually combining the Olympic aim with some elements representing the host city or country and its culture. The three Olympic pillars, sport, education, culture. Other, Paralympic symbols, Olympiadine, references, notes. External links, PBS The Real Olympics, 2004. 3. The raising of the Olympic flag in London, September 26, 2008, Olympic Files, Mascots, Bear Cub Misha Lovers Association, 1980 Summer Olympics Mascot Misha's fan page.